All right, this week on the Betterhumanology podcast, we have Bobby Maximus, who is the general manager and training director of Gym Jones. If you're not familiar with him and you're not familiar with Gym Jones, do not miss this episode. Just a quick brief on things that they've done as far as Gym Jones and Bobby Maximus. If you've seen the movie 300, yes, there were some trainers behind those bodies, and that was Gym Jones. If you've seen the movie Man of Steel, Gym Jones was behind that. And Bobby Maximus is an expert programmer. If you're familiar with the CrossFit Games, Tommy Hackenbrook and the Hacks Pack, they won the CrossFit Games as a team multiple times. Who was behind their programming? Bobby Maximus. So today we have Bobby Maximus. Very awesome and fortunate to get to interview him. A huge role model of mine when it comes to programming. So stick around for this episode.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
All right, Bobby, it's great to have you on the Betterhumanology podcast. I have been a huge follower of yours for several years through everything that you're doing in Gym Jones. Articles you post online, the workouts you put together, man, it's all great stuff. So first, I want to say welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
And I'll start with, something really simple. Just if you could explain to my listeners and audience who you are and what you do.
So my name is Bobby Maximus. I'm the GM and training director of Gym Jones. I am also the head of affiliates and ambassadors at Roan Apparel. And I also work with a shoe company named Lalo Tactical. I've been in this business, I would say seriously, for 9 years now. Before that, I worked as a police officer in Toronto, and I also had a brief fighting career in the UFC. But now I would say that, fitness, physical training, things like that, it's my full-time gig.
And, you're actually really good at it too, and that's the thing that, I think it turns a lot of people onto what you're doing. Not only are you good at, I'd say, putting workouts together, which is probably, one of your best suits in my opinion, but you're also an incredibly fit human being. And so I have to start with I have to know if it's true. The 300 FY test, 10-minute Aerodyne test, is it true that you got over 400 calories on that test?
Yes, I did 402, and literally, I almost lost my life that day. It was that bad.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you explain exactly what that test is?
So the 300 FY, it came about, FY stands for fuck you. It's 300 fuck you. The reason that came about is because a lot of people love to lie about their workout results. When you do things like circuits, progressions, chippers, with movements like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, squats, people will cheat range of motion to get a better score. One of the things that I love about the Aerodyne is that when you look at the computer, the number is the number you get. So Jared, if I sit you down and say do 10 minutes for max calories, the number that screen flashes at 10 minutes, that's your score. You can't tell me you did better form. You can't tell me that you did the actual thing. The number you get's the number you get. It is completely 100% ruthless feedback. And so that came about because people were saying, I did this workout in 10 minutes and 12 seconds, or I did this workout in 14 minutes and 15 seconds. This is cut and dry. You get your ass on an Aerodyne, you do it for 10 minutes. If you get 300 calories, you did the workout. If you get 299, fuck you. You didn't do the workout. And so that became the goal, to get 300 calories. Now, over time, people started to evolve. And it's funny because when you look at self-imposed limitations, 300 used to seem like a really high score. So we would get 310, 315, 318, 320. And then one day, a friend of mine got 340. So the bar was raised. And then we started getting 350, 355. And then another friend of mine, who's actually a professional cyclist, got 365 calories. And then from there, the number started to creep up. And I thought that 400 might be possible. It took me about a 6-month train up to do it. I focused, I dropped rowing from the program. I dropped ski erg from the program, running from the program. I lived on a fan bike and worked my way up to, break the 400 plateau. And then it's something I swore I would never, ever do again.
Man, that's brutal. So would you say that there's a strategy for that workout, or when you hit it, is it just straight, I'm going to go balls to the wall for 10 minutes? I know some people don't have that capacity, but maybe you do.
No, you know what? The first thing is, and it's something I preach a lot. If you want to get good at something, you have to do it every day. I mean, literally, I lived on an Aerodyne. I had it at my house. When I was watching TV, I was on an Aerodyne. When I was answering emails, I was on an Aerodyne. When I woke up in the morning eating my breakfast, I was on an Aerodyne. I mean, I was probably on the thing between 20 and 25 hours a week just spinning. So that's, I mean, really, there's no secret to doing well at it. You just got to be on it all the time. Then the other thing you want to do when you do the effort, you don't want to have too many highs and too many lows. A lot of people try to do an interval structure where you go really, really hard for 15 seconds and slow for 15 seconds. You burn yourself out. You have to just put your head down and have a sustained effort for 10 minutes. Now, the number of watts that it takes to do that on an Aerodyne were 564 watts for 10 minutes. So what I don't want to see you do is do 1,000 watts for 15 seconds and then go slow for 15. It was just stick it at 564 and hang on.
Man, that's crazy. But what's really impressive about that, and I would say, is your overall training. And this was probably, you said you were, on an Aerodyne for that period of time, but you've also been able to accomplish a lot of other things, I would say, in a smaller amount of time, even though it may be a few years, because I've seen you, deadlift over 600 pounds. If that's correct, is that the right number for you'd say your PR?
Yeah, that's correct. I did 605.
That's amazing. And so you're one of those anomalies who really knows how to balance what I like to call strength and engine. You have an extreme work capacity and you have a lot of strength. So how would you say that you specifically program or set that goal and achieve that goal to be able to balance the two?
The biggest thing is trying to pay attention to everything, but that also requires a huge time commitment. I think a lot of people sell themselves short in terms of what they're capable of. I jokingly in seminars say that I have a scale of life that I put everything on. It's great, good, shitty, and sucks. And where people have a hard time is we set these self-limits because we think a 600-pound deadlift is some great number. And I ask people, do you think that a 600-pound deadlift is really that good? They say it's incredible. Like it's no one in my gym can do it. The reality is there are a lot of people out there that can deadlift 700 pounds, 800 pounds, 900 pounds. I mean, really at 600 pounds, I'm not winning even a ribbon at the state fair for a deadlift. And so having an understanding of what you're capable of, I think it unlocks in your mind the capabilities that you have. And then it's easier to get to those capabilities from a physical standpoint. If you believe that something's possible, you'll get it. It's kind of funny. For the longest time, I was stuck at a 495-pound deadlift because I was the only one in the gym that could deadlift, that much weight. I had a good friend of mine named Stu Bradley come in, who's an NFL player. And I watched him deadlift 495 pounds 8 times without ever deadlifting before.
Wow.
So immediately I said, screw this. This guy's a much better football player than me. He's faster than me. He can jump higher than me, but he cannot beat me at my own game. Within 3 weeks, I was up to 575 pounds on my deadlift.
Wow.
And a lot of that was because I'd hurt my back before. And for some reason, 500 was a limitation I had in my mind that, I had decided arbitrarily that 500 pounds was a good deadlift. And then something happened to set me straight. And so that taught me a lot about these limitations. And so the first thing to understand is none of the numbers that I can pull taken by themselves are that great. It's the combination of them together that becomes great, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's what impresses me most is being able to, because you could go find a powerlifter right now who could, pull, like you said, 900 pounds, even 1,000 pounds, some of those guys, but maybe they can't do a pull-up or run to the end of the street.
Well, exactly. And so it's about having an understanding that you can be well-rounded and be good at these things. And then the next thing is devoting the time to it. You can't be good at something doing it 3 hours a week. The one thing the best people in the world have in common is that they devote themselves completely to the task. And so Michael Phelps, people think he was born a good swimmer. He wasn't born a good swimmer. He swam 1,300 hours a year for 10 straight years. That's why he's probably the best swimmer to ever walk the face of the earth. He worked at it continuously. People think Michael Jordan was born a great basketball player. He was cut from his high school basketball team, and he got to work, and he worked harder than anybody else, and he became the greatest player of all time. And so we can transfer this to training in the sense that if you really want to be good at something and you want to achieve a goal, you've got to devote time. So I really think the numbers that I'm pulling are possible for anybody, provided they're willing to give 20 to 25 hours a week of their life. And if you're willing to do that, you'll be successful. If you're only training 3 hours a week, I'm sorry, you're not going to be good at things. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that 20 hours isn't that crazy to devote to training if you really want to achieve something. I think that's a manageable number for most people once they realize, how they're actually spending their time.
I think it's completely possible, but the other thing is 20 hours still isn't a large chunk of your week. There's 168 hours in a week. There's 148 left. So the other thing I talk to people about is how much water do you drink? How much food do you eat? Do you watch your diet? Do you sleep 8 to 9 hours a night? Are you de-stressing your life? These are things that go in concert with those 20 hours. If you're willing to do all those things, you're going to be good.
And so what do you do when people claim that they have some, crazy time restrictions and everything else? What's your first response to that if someone comes to you and tells you that they want to achieve a goal, but they're so pressed for time?
So I use 2 examples. The first example I use is a good friend of mine named Preston Wood. Now, Preston is one of my favorite athletes that I've ever worked with. Preston's in his 40s. He works as the CTO for a very large bank. He's got a busy work schedule. He works between 60 and 70 hours a week. He has a wife that he's extremely committed to. He has daughters who he loves and spends time with. He's a busy guy. He travels a lot for his work. Preston can make time to train. And I tell people, he's busier than you. He's got kids and you don't. He's got a wonderful marriage and he can find time to train. Why can't you? If that doesn't work for people, giving them a real life human example of somebody who I think, with Preston is the quintessential example of dedication, then I do what's called a time audit. I tell them there's 168 hours in a week, and we start subtracting their commitments. And so, Jared, I ask you how many hours a week you work. And you say, I work 60 hours a week. I say, okay, that's 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So you're working 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. I'll also give somebody 2 hours of travel time every day. So now we're up to 60 hours of work and 10 hours of travel time. There's 70 hours. You have 98 hours left. And then the person says, well, I sleep. I said, I'm going to give you 10 hours of sleep a night. And you're going to tell me I only get 8. I will still give you 10. There's 70 hours. So 98 minus 70, you've got 28 hours left. What else are you doing with your time? I've got to go grocery shopping. I'll give you 3 hours for that. Now you have 25 hours left. What else do you do? I don't know. I watch 5 hours of TV. Okay, you've still now got 20 hours left. What do you mean you can't find 15 hours to train? Right. What else do you do? And when you do a time audit with people, people quickly realize they have a lot of time. 168 hours is an incredible bank of time that you can use. Problem with a lot of these people is they're spending their time on Facebook, Instagram, and at the root of it, they have, I think, poor time management.
Yeah, they have no clue how much, like you said, on like Facebook, Instagram stuff, maybe if you were to ask them, like, how much time do you spend on social media? They might say like 2 hours a day or something, when really, if you were to like have someone watching them, it's more like 4 to 6 hours a day. They just have no idea what they're actually doing to themselves.
A fun game to play with people that I've done to people is there was a person at the gym who argued with me that said they didn't spend that much time on their phone. I said, okay, every time you open your phone, every time that screen lights up, you owe 5 burpees. 2 days? 2 days is all it took for them to call me and say, you're right, I spend an excessive amount of time on my phone.
That's awesome. I think that's a good challenge for anyone out there.
Yeah, because you figure it out. And listen, I'm not trying to be preachy or hypocritical. I live on my phone because it's part of my job, but I'm cognizant of the amount of time it also costs me between sending text messages, checking text messages, surfing the internet, surfing Instagram profiles, checking Facebook. It eats a lot of time in the day. So don't tell me you don't have time. Just tell me you're not committed. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, just be honest. Yeah.
Just be honest.
That's awesome. I mean, I love your approach to training, especially because you really hit the psychological side to things. And I've read some of your articles, and you talk about the difference between training and working out, and how in training specifically, people struggle with self-imposed limitations. And we touched on that for a second when you were talking about your deadlift, but how can people maybe identify those or, overcome self-imposed limitations that they might have in their own lives and training?
I think the key to what you just said, or I believe the key to what you just said, is identifying what your self-imposed limitations are. We all have self-imposed limitations, and they come from life. We live in a society where you announce your goal and people want to put you down, and people want to tell you how hard things are going to be instead of being encouraging. I remember when I quit the police, service to come down here and work, I had a lot of people tell me I was making a horrible mistake. What if this business fails? What if things don't work out? There were a few people who believed in me, and those are the people I listened to. But I'm sure that you've been through a similar experience. Everyone has, where they know, this negative voice comes through, and because somebody else has failed or because they've failed, Jared, you're doomed to failure as well. And so one of the first things I do is start to surround myself with positive people and positive role models. I try to silence those negative voices and try to understand where my limitations come from. By surrounding yourself with positive people, you can start to unlock what is possible in your own life. Rather than looking at the person that can only deadlift 360 pounds, follow the person on Instagram that can deadlift 800 pounds or 900 pounds. Start to look for positive examples. If you can do that, you can start to identify what your limitations are. Once you have identified your limitations, a lot of us have had these limitations for numerous years. I mean, it's a deep-seated psychological issue that needs to be dealt with. And so you have to do a lot of self-work to deal with this stuff. You can't just wake up and decide you're not going to have a limit anymore. Two of the things that I use are, the first thing is green light thoughts. This was taught to me by my sports psychologist. I wasn't very good at sports when I was younger. I was cut from all the teams I tried out for. I was always the last picked on the playground for stuff. And eventually I found my way into wrestling. The first year I wrestled, I lost every single match. The second year I wrestled, I think I won one match, but I was terrible. By the time I got to 17 or 18 years old and I started getting good at stuff, you can imagine the limitations that I had. I always viewed myself as that 14-year-old kid that wasn't good at sports, that got picked on the bus ride home, that got bullied. I didn't view myself as a stud athlete or an All-American athlete or somebody that was, about to fight in the UFC. I had a lot of self-imposed limitations with that. And from those self-imposed limitations, I started thinking what my sports psychologist referred to as red light thoughts. When I remember before UFC 53 at the Mandalay Bay Casino in Vegas, I remember thinking, I don't belong here. There's 20,000 people in the audience. This is 10 times bigger than the place I grew up. I lost every wrestling match. Like what am I going to do? I'm going to get killed out there. Jared, let me ask you a question. How do you think I did in that fight with that mindset?
Probably pretty poorly.
Pretty poorly. It was one of my worst fights ever. I lost. So what I started doing was, rather than letting these red light thoughts take over my life, every time I thought a red light thought, I started thinking a green light thought. Green light thoughts are confidence building thoughts. I started saying to myself, you were second in the world for amateur kickboxing. You've got this. You were ranked in Canadian wrestling for a number of years. You are a better wrestler than your opponent. Nobody works as hard as you. Nobody has the conditioning that you have. I would start thinking these things, and they programmed me to believe in myself and to start believing in my abilities. But I even took it a step further. I went down to the Office Depot. I got a roll of green dots and I stuck them everywhere, on my fridge handle, on my steering wheel, above my bed. And every time in everyday life I saw a green dot, I had to think a green light thought.
That's awesome.
Eventually you start to believe yourself, because if you've been brought up a certain way for 18 years and you had a pattern of being shy and not believing in yourself and being picked on and these red light thoughts, then how are you supposed to overcome that in 2 minutes? You can't. You have to do a lot of work. And so these green light thoughts became super important in my life. And it's something I still do. When I'm training, I think green light thoughts. In fact, in a training session today, I was doing bench press reps at 315. And my last set, I wanted to go for max reps. And the red light thoughts started. You're tired. You've just moved an entire house. You're busy with work. You're not going to do. I shut those down and started thinking, I've done 315 pounds, 10 sets of 10 on the bench. I'm stronger than I've ever been. No one is as hardworking as I am. And then all of a sudden, the red light thoughts fade away. I believe in myself and I do much better on my set.
That's awesome.
And I think that's transferable to every aspect of life, even far beyond working out. We all have red light thoughts. You have red light thoughts, I'm sure, about this podcast even.
Oh, yeah. I've red light thoughts all the time about anywhere. I try to combat those, but yeah, they're always there.
And so these green light thoughts can be super positive. And like I said, go buy yourself a roll of green dots, put them places you're likely to see them. And every time you see one, you think positive thoughts. And it sounds corny until you realize that the best athletes in the world, they do this kind of stuff. They work on sports psychology all the time, and it works.
And I love how practical that is. I mean, it's so simple, and yeah, I could do that, get that done today, and start really working on my mindset. So that's very practical advice. You mentioned in one of the articles I read that getting over those self-imposed limitations is perhaps one of the biggest crucibles that you're going to face in training. But going back to just a crucible, do you find that crucible-like experiences, either weekly or monthly, are an important part to training? And I'm talking from a physical standpoint, actual crucible type workout.
Yeah, I think they can be. I think you need to test yourself in order to get better. I absolutely think you need to face challenges. That's the difference between training and exercise. When you train, I mean, for people that have competed in a sport, on game day, you feel the pressure. I think pressure can make you a better person. I think learning to fail is an essential part of the entire process. And so I believe you need to put yourself in these positions where you have the opportunity to pass, but you also have the opportunity to fail, and you put yourself through this type of crucible type work in order to do better. Just showing up at the local gym, swiping your membership card and going through the motions, I don't believe that teaches anyone anything. I think you need genuine, real, hard work. You have to push yourself to the limits, and you have to, like I said, experience both failure and success in order to improve. That said, not every day needs to be some giant crucible or mountain to climb. A lot of people, myself, I was guilty of this included, throw around the word suffering in the gym. Listen, if you're in a position where you can show up to the gym 2 hours a day to train, you're not suffering. Suffering's not knowing where your next meal's coming from. Suffering's watching your wife go through cancer or watching your parent die. Going to the gym 2 hours a day and working hard, it can be fun. It can be exciting. It can be rewarding. You just have to push yourself really hard.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And that's one of the things I've written about too is, some people say that showing up is 80% of success or 90% of success, but I'd like to challenge people that showing up isn't good enough.
Nope.
You have to do more than just show up. There's no attendance being taken right now. You're going to have to put in the hard work.
No, and you know what? People that just show up, you might end up looking good. You might end up with some kind of result, and showing up is a lot better than not showing up. I'm not taking anything away from those people. But if you really want to accomplish a goal, you're right, showing up's not enough. You've got to do more. And there's a direct correlation between the work you're going to do and the success you're going to achieve.
Well, that's awesome, Rob. I mean, Bobby, I really appreciate what you've said so far, but I do want to be mindful of your time and then hop into the quick fire, the questions of the show. Are you good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man, what's the hardest workout you've ever done?
The hardest workout I've ever done is 1,000 burpees for time.
That's brutal. How long did that take you?
2 hours and 10 minutes. I think it was so difficult because of the sheer number. Somewhere around 400, you just start to get lost and you start to feel that it's the workout that never ends. It was one of the most psychologically challenging things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I could see the monotony there, just destroying someone mentally. That's incredible. All right, man, in your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Oh, that's a tough one. The best activity I would say for building mental toughness is the 2,000-meter row.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that is,
the reason I say that is because, once again, it's similar to 300 FY, because there is a screen that is staring you in the face. And if you're successful, it's evident. If you fail, it's also evident. It's also one of those exercises that's long enough to be really hard, where you get lost in your thoughts and you're forced to deal with negativity and red light thoughts. But it's short enough that you have to go so hard that it really, really hurts. And the general path for this is the first 500 is easy. The next 1,000 meters you spend in the darkness. The voices start. You need to quit. There's no way you can hold this pace. Slow down. You're going to blow up. And you have to force yourself to deal with that until the last 500, where you can almost see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then things get better. And I think that middle 1,000, I think that's where all the magic happens in terms of making you a psychologically tough individual.
and what's the standard that you guys normally prescribe on the 2,000-meter row?
I used to say the standard was 7 minutes. I think everyone is capable of 7 minutes, but the truth is that's easy for some people. The standard needs to be adjusted for individual goals. And so the standard is go as hard as you can. A person that's 6'3", 250 can do a 2,000 meter in 7 minutes fairly easily. The person that's 5'4" and $140, that's the hardest thing they'll ever do in their life. Right. And so honestly, there needs to be a different standard for different sizes and heights of people.
Okay.
But as a general, 7 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good 7 minutes has always pushed me personally. So I think that, like I said, personally, I get to all the places that you were just talking about trying to go sub 7. So, yeah.
But here's another standard for you. Faster than the last time you did it.
Yep, exactly. I'm always trying to beat myself. Yep. That's
it. And it's funny. If you did a 2,000 meter row for time every Monday and you had to take a second off every single time, in a year, you'd take 52 seconds off.
That'd be awesome.
You'd eventually find where your limit was.
Yeah, there'd be some sort of plateau there before you would just start to find out how to get better.
Exactly.
All right, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
A floor.
All right, I like that. Why a floor?
The reason I say that is because you don't need any equipment. Think about being in an empty room or in a backyard. You can do squats, you can do jumps, you can do push-ups, you can do burpees, you can do lunges. You don't really need anything. Your body and a floor are really the only two pieces of equipment that you need.
That's awesome. And I think that you are the creator of the push-up grid, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You do those pretty regularly?
I do them almost every day. I have this saying, if you want to be good at something, you've got to do it every single day. And the funny thing with push-ups, how many push-ups do you think that you've done in your life? For people listening at home, pick a number. Well, if all you did was 100 push-ups a day spread out through the day, maybe in sets of 5, you'd never get tired, you'd never get sweaty, you'd never get sore. But 100 a day for 365 days, by the end of the year, you'd accumulate over 36,000 push-ups. Have you done that many in your life?
Yeah.
You can get really good at them without much of a cost.
That's awesome.
So I will, if I'm hanging pictures, I'm saying that right now because we just moved into a new house and we have to hang all our pictures. Every time I hang a picture, I'll drop and do 10 push-ups. You'd be surprised how much that adds up and how good you get at them.
That's really cool. I think that and the phone. I think I want to try out every time I pull up my phone, maybe I'll do push-ups or burpees or something.
Yeah, 5 push-ups. You won't be able to lift your arms over your head by the end of the day.
Yeah, very true. All right, man. The last and most important question of the show, what's your best advice for becoming a better human? And it's 100% open-ended.
Be nice to everyone.
All right.
And I say that, it's a simple children's rule. But I think sometimes the most difficult thing to do in life is just be nice. We all have bad days. We've all got our personal demons to go through. We all get angry, but ask yourself a question. Does it ever hurt being nice to somebody? One of the most important pieces of advice that I was given by a very good friend of mine named Steve, one of my oldest friends, was always take the high road. He said, it's the one road you will never, ever regret. And it's true. Be nice to everyone. You'd be surprised how far that will get you and also how good you feel about yourself. We live in a day and age where we put people down on social media. What made you open your computer today and decide to attack somebody that you don't know? Was that necessary? It absolutely wasn't. What decided to make you be rude to the waitress or rude to the person who works at the store you shop at most? It's not necessary at all. I get that you've had a bad day. Don't take it out on other people. And it's funny just the global effect that there could be if everyone was positive and everyone was just nice to people. But like I said, sometimes it's the hardest thing in the world to do and you've got to work at it. But I really think it makes a difference. I think you feel better about yourself. I think you respect yourself more. And I always say that you never elevate yourself by putting other people down.
Right.
So if you can be nice to everyone, as corny as that sounds, I think that's the single best thing that you can not only do to make yourself a better person, but really imagine if everyone was supportive of each other. You see the trolls on social media, I'm sure, that come out of the woodwork. Like, that wasn't necessary. If we were all encouraging of each other, I think this world would be a lot better place.
I totally respect that answer, Bobby, and I think that's awesome. So before we close it out here, man, what's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram at Bobby Maximus. You can also go to the website for the gym, which is www.gymjones.com. That's GYMJONES.com. And you could also follow me on Twitter, which is at Bobby Maximus. I routinely post workouts, nutritional information, motivational type stuff. Lately, I've been in a lot more into workout psychology and training psychology than anything else. But I think they're all three great places that you can learn from. And on the Jim Jones website, we have a storehouse of videos, knowledge articles, and other things that can help make you a better person all around.
All right, Bobby, I love that. I love the website, and I do recommend that everyone out there stop what you're doing and go check out Jim Jones and give Bobby a follow on Twitter and Instagram. I know I follow him, and I'm always motivated whether I'm seeing him pull 605 or one of your Sunday sermons, man. It's really all awesome stuff.
Yeah, and don't forget eating giant hamburgers. That's
or pizzas.
Part of the training process.
Yeah, all right, man. I really appreciate you being on the Better Humanology podcast. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Jared.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.